Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hello, fans and listeners. It's Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and your host of the podcast. Our guest today is Dede Griesbauer, professional triathlete and world champion. Dede was raised in New Jersey. In high school, she set pool, school, New England, and national prep school records in backstroke and individual medley events. She went on to swim at Stanford University, accumulating 10 NCAA All-American honors. As captain, she led the 1992 team to an NCAA championship. Individually, Dede represented the United States as part of the USA Swimming national team between 1989 and 1994. She was a gold medalist at the 1989 Pan-Pacific Championships and at the 1991 Pan American Games in the 200-meter backstroke. She swam in 2 Olympic trials in 1988 and 92. And in 92, she placed 5th in the 200-meter backstroke, narrowly missing the Barcelona Games team. Dede retired from her swimming career in 94. She went to school, earned an MBA, and worked on Wall Street for 8 years as an equity trader. Later on, in 2005, Dede decided to set aside her Wall Street career and return to sport after just 2 years of participating in triathlon as an age group athlete. Highlights from her career as a professional triathlete include 3 Ironman wins. The first came in 2006, Ironman UK, and then 2009 at Ironman Brazil. She's also a 3-time top 10 finisher in Kona in 2007, 2008, and 2009. In 2011, Dede had a near career-ending crash during Ironman Germany. She broke 6 bones, an elbow, 2 ribs, her pelvis in 2 places, and her hip. She was told she'd never run again. But by mid-2012, she was back on the race course. And she came back so strong. In 2016, she became the 12-hour time trial world champion, pedaling 258 miles in 12 hours. Dede started 2020 with a win, 2nd overall at the Ultraman, Florida, where she set a world record for the Ultraman distance of 22 hours, 48 minutes, and 31 seconds. It was a record by over an hour. Recently, and amazingly, in 2022, at the age of 52, Dede became a world champion, taking the title at the Ultraman World Championship in Hawaii. She set a course record, 23 hours, 22 minutes, and 58 seconds. She broke the course record by 45 minutes and finished 3rd overall. She won that women's race by nearly an hour and 45 minutes. This is so impressive, but Dede is more than an athlete. She lives in Colorado with her husband and is the proud owner of Yellow Labradors, Piper and Charlie. She is a coach with JD Crew, and she's part of Ironman Live commentary team as well. Dede, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And for our listeners, we're having this conversation on New Year's Eve. Woohoo! It's a party over here.
Whoopie-doo! Yeah, I know how to party hard.
Yes, we both booked this and we didn't have any plans and no worries.
No, after this, we're getting ready and going out. We're putting on our dancing shoes and our party dresses. This is just the warm up.
I love that. Well, I live outside of city limits in Texas, so we'll see how good my audio is because fireworks are already starting. I'm hearing the banging. It's a show here. It's
oh, that's amazing.
It actually, as wild as it is pretty cool. I can just look out my window and see fireworks instead of having to go to the fireworks. But
yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. No, we have Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen on New Year's Eve in Times Square. That's about as festive as we're getting this evening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining. Your, history as an athlete is so impressive. And so we'll dive into all of that. But I think one of the biggest questions when we just like, as an outsider kind of looking at your bio is, you were a great athlete, but you kind of retired from it, moved on, had your 9-to-5 job. What was it in you that, I don't know if we want to call it middle-aged. I don't know. Let's not put terms to that. But like, what was it what was it in you that was like, I want to be competitive again? And it's not like you ever probably never completely stopped, but what was it that was like, I'm going to get back to competitive sports? Like, what was that drive? Did something happen in your life? Can you share more about that?
Honestly, no. Like when I retired from swimming, I really thought my career, so to speak, as an athlete was over. I did stay active. I love to work out. I love to be physically active. I think that's why I loved my sport so much, is that I just loved the structure of it, the schedule of it. And so when I retired from swimming, I actually started running, mostly to keep up with my swimmer eating habits.
Yeah.
But I love to run, and it wasn't a competitive thing. It was just a physical fitness thing. I feel better when I exercise, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the Ironman sort of by dumb luck. I saw it on television and I thought, well, I was a pretty good swimmer. And the summer before I went to business school, a boy I was trying to impress had invited me to ride bikes across the country together.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. And I literally bought a bicycle, and 5 days later we flew to Seattle and rode back to the East Coast.
Wow.
The trip was a disaster, and we broke up in Montana, and the relationship was ill-fated from the start, but it introduced me to cycling. And then when I was in business school, I ran my first marathon. So when I saw the Ironman on TV, I thought, gosh, I really want to try this.
Yeah.
I just missed the structure of training and the process of goal setting in a physical way. I had goals professionally and that sort of thing, but I missed that part of it. And so I signed up for an Ironman, and in I'll say my second attempt, I qualified for the Ironman World Championship as an amateur. Yeah. And thought, well, that sounds like fun. And all of a sudden I was hooked. I really thought when I signed up, it would be a one and done sort of thing, but I had the opportunity to start racing professionally. And that was when my coach at the time suggested, I think you'd be pretty good. Would you ever consider quitting your job? And I had a really good job. Like I was a vice president for a Wall Street investment firm, and things were going really well. Mm-hmm. But when she said it, would you consider quitting your job and racing professionally? Something in my gut was like, yes. And I felt that I had made so many mistakes as a swimmer and never really reached my athletic potential that part of me wanted to right some of those wrongs and try it again with a new mindset and a new perspective, honestly, and a fresh enthusiasm for what was a new sport.
Yeah. So you went straight to Ironman, or did you, like you said, you were running and stuff, but did you do sprint triathlons, or you just went straight to?
No. That would be the more conventional path, admittedly, but no, I signed up. I saw the Ironman and I signed up for the Ironman. Honestly, my physiology is well suited towards it. Yeah. Even when I was a swimmer, I think my college coach said to me at one point, Dede, if the mile backstroke had been an event, you might have been a pretty good swimmer. and somewhere in there, I think there was a compliment.
Yeah, somewhere in there. You have to dig for it, but
it was mixed in there somewhere. But my physiology, I'm suited towards longer distances. Yeah. And the intrigue of the Ironman, I just signed up and I went for it. My first bicycle experience, other than riding to grammar school on my Schwinn, was riding my bike across the country.
Right, exactly.
Why would triathlon be any different? I saw the Ironman and I thought that's something. I was inspired by the challenge of it and trying something I thought maybe I couldn't do. And I wanted to see if I could. And so I went, literally first triathlon was an Ironman.
Wow, that's quite impressive, but it also makes sense. And it's not like, you were sitting on the couch for 20 years. You had this huge foundation of athletics, childhood, high level swimming, and then keeping up that fitness post-collegiately. So it's, it wasn't like it was out of nowhere, but it is, I can just see that drive of you wanted to do the big challenge. And that's
I really was inspired by the thing that seemed undoable to see if I could do it. And that's just, for right or wrong, that's kind of how I'm wired. And I don't recommend it to everyone, but for me, it was the right path. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my proper etiquette, how I was raised, told me not to ask people about their age and stuff. But I just think this is such an important part of your story, is because you are competitive and world champion at, it was 2022, would have been
52.
52 years old. Like that's that actually needs to be said. And so,
yes.
Kind of backtracking, when you got back, so I can't do the math right now. How old were you when you got into Ironmans?
When I quit my job, I was 30, I'm going to say 35, 30,
Okay.
30 almost 35 when I quit my job to start racing professionally. So I had done it for 2 years as an amateur. So I was in my mid 30s when I found triathlon to begin with. And when I started racing professionally, I was actually when I raced my first Ironman World Championship, I was 35 years old as a professional. Yeah. 35. Yeah. When I turned pro, which in this day and age, I honestly believe we'll never see that again. I mean, part of that is the wonderful growth in the sport, but people are racing so aggressively and so often, so frequently. I don't think the kind of longevity that I'm experiencing, I'm not sure we'll ever see that again.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I wanted this conversation to go, is like, you started at 35, and so much of, youth has its benefits of recovering faster. And so that so many people chase their athletic ambitions in their 20s and might maybe even peak in those early 30s. But things like joints aching and needing more sleep and more recovery time really starts to affect people in their mid 30s. And then not only was that the time that you started, but now you've been 20 years at 20 years of doing this and being able to stay durable. And in that too, as I read off that crash that you recovered from so quickly, but there's got to be, I know there's no magic pill, but there's got to be a few things that you feel like this is what's helped me stay healthy, training at the highest level for 20 years in this age bracket. What are some of the top things that you think work for you? Not saying they work for everybody, but what works for you?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I think the nature of ultra endurance racing, and I'll put the Ironman and Ultraman and the Race Across America and all the 12-hour time trial, all the ultra endurance things that I've done, they favor, I don't want to say an older athlete, but they favor experience.
This is true.
Because there are so many, across a race that lasts 8 or 9 hours, there's so many things that are going to go wrong. And when you have the experience and the mindset to tackle those things as they come, as they're thrown at you, which inevitably they will be in every single race and every single event that you tackle, having the ability to calm and say, I've been through this before, I know exactly what to do. A younger athlete might panic and freak out and, oh, this wasn't going according to plan, and now my day is over and everything is ruined. So I think the nature of endurance racing favors an older athlete to a certain extent. Yeah. I am obviously taking that to an extreme. And I think part of what I have in my favor is, number one, my passion for it. I love the sport. I love what I do. I think I have a different perspective than some of my competitors in that I had a 8-year career on Wall Street where I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and sitting in an office and doing all of the corporate things for better and worse. And I chose this, and I continue to choose it every single day. I think that perspective of having that choice and actively choosing it and having that deep a passion for it helps, because it is not all butterflies and unicorns. It is a tremendous amount of work to be doing this at this age. And so the fact that I love it so much, I'm willing to do the unbelievable amount of work that comes with trying to continue to be competitive into my mid 50s, which is unheard of. There's one other woman who's in her young 50s who's doing it. And I applaud her because I know how hard it is. Like, we're writing the book. There's no manual. Yeah. Like, there's no one you can look to say, hey, can you give me any advice as to how this is going to go? We're writing that script, and it's really hard. But because I love it so much, I'm willing to do the extra, and there's extra to be an elite, the best in the world. It always takes extra, and I'm doing extra on top of that because of my age, but I'm doing it willingly and passionately because I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it probably, when you had that opportunity of like, your coach suggesting trying to go professional, it's like, yeah, what do I got to lose? Yeah, I could, this job, but I could come back to it in a few years if I have to, right? So that peace of mind, whereas it is a different scenario for younger athletes who feel like they're putting all their eggs in one basket, as the saying goes, and that's tough. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't keep pursuing it, but it is that different mindset. And in endurance sports, which you alluded to, mindset plays a huge role. Staying positive, overcoming those obstacles, like that because there's so much that can happen in such a long event. And I think another thing, just speaking to the nature of the sport, when it comes to sprint and power sports, with youth, you have those faster twitch muscles, but actually the more that you train in endurance, the better off, right? So
Yes,
it's like, this is different than, speed skating or basketball, hockey, where we really need those sprint and power output differently.
And also, interestingly, the longer we get in distance, the better we are as women able to compete with the men. Like my Ultraman races, I was at the front of the race. Like after day 2 of Ultraman Florida, I was still in the lead ahead of all of the men, and got beat by one of them. And then Ultraman Worlds, same situation. I was tied for the lead after day 1, sitting in second place after day 2. And so I was at the front of the race. And so the nature of those sports, yes, it favors an older athlete, or it doesn't disadvantage, I should say, an older athlete the same way. I'm not going to make my comeback as a 5K runner or an Olympic distance triathlete. That power, that fast twitch, I don't have it. But I have found, and that's sort of been the evolution of my career, when I found, okay, maybe my days of being top 10 at the Ironman World Championship are over. What else can I do? And going longer.
Ultra. Yeah. Yes.
I don't mind the work. I'm not afraid of the work. I'm not afraid of the pain. I'm not afraid of the mindset. Let's try longer. And I found great success with it. And I'm so thankful that I tried it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I think it might need to be renamed Ultra Woman race, because as we kind of learn more about sport physiology and the different sexes and how we can respond to training, you are right that it seems, as we go further in distance and ultra events, that gap that we historically see between male and female performances lessens and lessens and lessens. So
it was an interesting lesson I actually learned very early on, because at the end of my career at Stanford, I was still swimming best times. I wasn't ready to retire from swimming. I wanted to swim post-collegiately, which now you think of people out of college. There's lots of people who swim out of college. But when I did it, there was no venue for it. There was no support system for it. I was one of the first ones to ever do it. And I didn't feel comfortable staying at Stanford. I moved with my coach, who was the assistant coach at Stanford, who went on to become the men's head coach at Harvard. And I went and trained alongside the Harvard men. And one of the things I realized in training with the men day in and day out, we'd stand up on the blocks and go all out 100-meter repeats, maybe 5 or 6 of them on a VO2 max kind of session. I'm not going to compete. But when we have 8, 9, 10,000 meter swim sessions, I can hold pace with them. I can beat them. At the end of it, I'm still okay and they're breaking down. So it was a lesson I learned really early on, that given the right opportunity, women can absolutely compete with the men.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can fact check me on this because I'm not the expert here, but I remember when I used to work side by side with strength coaches, because right now I, run my own business. So I collaborate, but it's not the same. When I was in a facility working side by side with strength coaches, I remember one of them telling me once that, women, even when it comes to muscular strength and, more, lifting weights and stuff like that, that the female sex can just do more reps at a certain weight, so maybe the men are at, stronger with they're actually hitting higher numbers, but women can do more at a moderate number, you know,
Yes.
and it's
Correct.
really interesting
Yeah.
that science is really interesting to dive into that. And it's empowering for sure as well. And I agree with you too, that you are writing the book, which is so cool, you know, just thinking women's sports history, you know, in Title IX in the 70s, it's like we've had opportunities, but your generation is really the first that's like seeing it all the way through, not just,
Yes.
oh, I had the opportunity to be on the cheerleading gymnastics team in high school, but like, or okay, I finally have a scholarship in college, but like I can make a career out of this and I can keep being competitive throughout my entire life. That is your generation. It's really interesting.
Actually, my senior thesis in college, I was a public policy major, and my senior thesis was on Title IX, and it wasn't on the policy itself, but it was on the procedure of getting the policy approved. But regardless, I studied Title IX quite a bit, and really interesting that you mentioned that because, I mean, I think of women, even my first triathlon coach, Karen Smyers, she was one of the first beneficiaries of Title IX, but not to the same way that me, even at, 8 years younger than she is, it didn't even occur to me that it wouldn't be an opportunity to have a college scholarship and participate in a number of college sports for women. So it's fascinating. There's a downside to it as well, but for another time.
Sure. So let's get back to kind of things that help you stay healthy. There's a lot of work that I actually can't even imagine your training schedule. Oh, we need a pause for anybody who's not familiar with Ultraman. So probably most people are familiar with triathlon, swim, bike, run. Yes. And then we've got the Ironman. So let's just hear it from you because Ultraman is swim, bike, run, but it's not the same as the Ironman straight through. So could you give our listeners a breakdown of Ironman versus Ultraman?
Sure. So an Ironman is a single day, 140.6 mile race consisting of a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, 26.2 mile run, done in sequence with in between what's called a transition. And those are timed as well. So you are timed from start to finish, how fast you can get from the start of the swim to the end of the marathon. So 140.6 miles in a single day. Ultraman takes that and sort of turns it on its head. Ultraman is 3 days, 320 miles. So day one is a 10 kilometer swim, which is 6.2 miles, followed by a 91 mile bike. Day two is a 171 mile bike. And day three is a double marathon. So it is more than twice the distance across 3 days. Yeah. So it's a completely different set of demands because of the sequence of days. And I learned very quickly in my first Ultraman experience how different Ultraman racing was to, I'll just use air quotes, just Ironman racing.
Right.
Not so different, honestly, in the training and preparation, to be honest, but hugely different in the nutritional demands and the physical demands.
Yeah, just to get a grasp of the 3-day event, so you get to rest in between the days, but it can't be about how much time is there really? Because these takes a
Well, it depends on how long it takes you. So each day of Ultraman took me less than 8 hours.
Okay.
So we would start at between 6 and 7 a.m., depending on the day's discipline. So I would finish by about 2 p.m.
Okay.
And be able to go back to our accommodation, get massage, get a few meals in, a hot Epsom salt bath, get a good night's sleep, and wake up and do it all again the next day.
Right.
If you are a competitor who is a little bit further back of the pack,
you get less rest.
The cutoff, I think, is 12 hours per day. So if you're starting at 6 a.m., finishing at 6 p.m., you've got to get home and do all of those things and be up again, ready to start the next day at 6 a.m. So it's a completely different set of demands.
Yeah. So it's like the faster you get done, the more you can rest, and that gives you a better advantage. But man, I don't think I could finish day one of Ultraman in a day, in 24 hours. It's just crazy. So you mentioned that like nutritional and physical demands in the race are even, different for Ultraman than even Ironman. What are some of, for you, the biggest differences in your experience from the nutrition piece?
Yeah, my experience with Ironman, and to be honest, it's sort of interesting when I got the request to come on your podcast, knowing that it's, focused on athlete nutrition, I was like, they know who I am, right? Like nutrition has been my proverbial Achilles heel from the time I was a swimmer. Nutrition is not intuitive to me. There are some things that are incredibly intuitive as an athlete. And I think that's what has allowed me to be, compete at a world-class level in not one, but two different sports in my lifetime. Nutrition is not one of them. So for me, it's taken me literally 20 years to try to, again, I'll use air quotes, master nutrition for an Ironman. And that's a single day event. And in Ironman racing, we're relying on what I'll call sports fuel, the gels, the chews, the carbohydrate dense drinks, how to dose those properly with the proper electrolytes, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all fake food, high quality. And the quality of those products has improved tremendously across the time I've been competing, which is why people are able to go so much faster. We're able to consume so much more because the makeup of these products is so much more easily digestible that we're able to consume more and more and more, which your fuel, that's your gas, that's what helps you to go.
Right.
But when I did Ultraman for the first time, I thought, I'm just going to replicate my Ironman nutrition for 3 days in a row.
And that didn't work.
Right? I mean, how hard can it be? I've got my Ironman fueling plan down. I'm just going to wake up on day 2 and do the same thing I did on day 1 and then do it again on day 3. No.
I can already see where your stomach was very upset.
Very early on day 2, I was 10 miles into a 171-mile ride and I'm sucking down my sport drink and it's coming right back up. And I thought, I'm in big trouble here. If I'm getting sick 10 miles in and I've got 161 miles to go, we need to triage. And I learned really quickly and the hard way that real food in some way, shape, or form has to be part of my ultra fueling. And I had to, between my win at Ultraman Florida, where I set that world record somehow because I was physically sick from every end of my body across the second 2 days and somehow managed to get to the finish line. I knew the pandemic ended up being the greatest blessing to my Ultraman career because I had 2 years to figure out, okay, I'm going to go to the Ultraman World Championship with an entirely different fueling plan to help me get through that in a better way. And I relied very, very heavily on real foods that I could digest, that I could chew, that I could swallow, that I could process. And each day had a very different fueling strategy. And I learned so much, even in just one go at Ultraman, that helped me tremendously at my second attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you, right? From the initial, power bar back in the 90s, sports fuel has come a long way. And, I think I kind of want to say for our listeners who are of all different sports and distances, I really do, as a dietitian, I love whole foods. But then when it comes to sports performance, it's like, no, these sports nutrition products are designed to be the most tolerable on your stomach, to absorb the quickest, to help your muscles use that carbohydrate for your top performance. So I really do recommend sports products quite a bit with my athletes. But then the more you get into ultras and distance, it's like, wait, no, you can't live on 100-calorie gels. You can't live on straight sugar. You need some fiber. You need protein. You need fat. You need things that make your, fill up your stomach because, you're racing for 8 hours a day, 3 days in a row. How many meals did you miss because of that, right? And your gut just needs some substance in there, really.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, all these sports products, yes, the chemical composition of them has changed to make them more easily digestible and how they're delivered through the gut, et cetera. It's fascinating. It's an entire science that I don't understand. I know what products work and I'm grateful for them. But when I look back to the beginning of my career as an Ironman athlete, I was taking maybe 50, 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour because that's all I could digest, right? By the marathon, the big fear was that you got the sort of the water belly, right? You were putting the calories in, but they weren't processing and you'd get this distended belly and you'd feel full, but also be bonking at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these products are so much more easily digestible that I can get 90, 100, 110 grams per hour
Yeah.
without getting that intestinal distress. But when you add that up, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still sugar.
Yeah.
And so, like, imagine eating nothing but your Halloween candy for 3 days. By day 3, you're going to be like,
doesn't feel good. Yeah.
You just don't, you can't perform. You can't do the job you need to do. So we had to change a lot of things for the ultra distance. Yeah, for sure.
Now, as you're doing those ultra distances and getting more whole foods in, is that like utilizing rest stops and aid stations, or do you like pack things on you? Are you over there with potato in a tin foil and a, PB&J sandwich in a Ziploc baggie stuffed in your sports bra? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So with Ultraman, you're required to have a crew.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I loved about ultra racing was that you build your own aid station and they come with you wherever you go. Right. Mm-hmm. So they would leapfrog me in a race vehicle, and we had a fueling strategy. Actually, one of the members of my crew was not their sole job. They had many jobs, but their primary job was to literally keep track of how many calories I was consuming in terms of carbs, protein, electrolytes, ounces of fluids, etc. Yeah. So if I would toss a water bottle back to my crew and they would hand me a fresh one, she would look at how much I left.
Yeah.
And calculate exactly how much I was getting, because then that would go into, well, what's her deficit once she gets off the bike for the day? What do we need to get in her to get her ready for tomorrow? And it was a very, very big undertaking, particularly for someone for whom a bowl of cereal and a glass of wine is a perfectly delightful meal. Like, I literally could eat dinner and just have myself a bowl of cereal and a nice little glass of red wine and be like, that's a good dinner. So to enter this world where nutrition is as important, if not more important than the training I was doing, was a really, really big challenge, and something that I take a lot of pride in. That, maybe we could have done things better, but the improvements that I had in terms of how I felt, my mental clarity, my ability to perform from my first Ultraman to my second was tremendous. And a lot of that was just, I ate better.
Yeah.
Point blank.
And I love this conversation where, on a normal Monday night, like, you're happy with a bowl of cereal. It does, that you don't have to be, super into food per se to get by. And I think that's a good message for people to hear, that you don't have to be a foodie. You don't have to understand all the science of it. You're allowed to eat what you like.
Yes.
And you're allowed to make it easy on yourself. However, when it comes to performance, like,
yes,
on the day of the race or maybe the week of the race, when it comes to things like during your training, your pre and your post, like the sports piece is where we want to dial it in. Mm-hmm. And I bring this up because I think it's important for athletes to have, I use the phrase food freedom of, eat what you want. You love pizza on Friday nights, have pizza on Friday nights. You got a race Saturday morning. Oh, that's when you make a different decision. It's not that you can never have pizza. It's not these hard and fast food rules, but it's knowing when do we make decisions that are for performance and when do we make decisions that are because this is what works for me.
And that's what's been a really hard lesson for me, is that I don't have to forego the bowl of cereal because I love my cereal.
Good.
But it can't be my dinner, right? Because my performance the next day will suffer.
Yeah.
And I have the unfortunate history of, at the start of my athletic career as a swimmer in the late 80s and 90s, the nutrition protocols that were delivered to us by coaches, by nutritionists, by health providers as a part of our university was a very different mindset. And I honestly believe they weren't trying to do us harm, but we look, as swimmers in the late 80s and early 90s, we looked very, very different than the swimmers of today. Swimmers of today are strong and powerful, and we were monitored by a scale. We were weighed in and instructed to eat healthy, but it always came back to that number on a scale.
Yeah.
And if that number on the scale grew, as is the phobia for female college athletes, we literally, and this is a terrible story, but
It's okay.
we got put in what was called the fat group.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we were weighted in front of our squad 3 days a week. And if you had gained more than a certain number of pounds, you were put in the fat group.
Wow.
And instead of doing our dry land training, which was stretch cords and Vasotrainer and pull-ups and, dry land out of pool training, you had to go run.
Ugh.
Now, the problem with me is that I learned in college, I love to run. So I would go into the locker room and chug a gallon of water so that my weight would be heavier so that I would get put in the fat group and I could go run. I loved to run.
Yeah.
But the mentality it enforced.
It's messed up. Yeah.
It's some really bad messaging about what is healthy and what is important. And the process to unwind that and realize that fueling more is actually going to help you perform better than just weighing in at a certain number, and learning that your fuel is your power and that your fuel is your ability to go forward and perform at a world-class level. You don't perform by eating less, you perform by actually eating more.
Right.
Was a really, really hard lesson to learn, but one I'm so grateful I finally did. But again, it's just, I think it's a different mindset and different knowledge about fueling and the kind of training that's effective and the kind of fueling that's effective. It's an evolution.
Yeah.
And having had the benefit of being a part of 2 different sports across my entire life, I've just learned so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And things will continue to evolve. Where will we be in another 50 years? Who knows?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it is, it's shocking, also totally believable. And there are still people, coaches, and programs out there that are doing weigh-ins, and it's wrong. It's unhealthy, no matter what the sport, no matter what the gender. And there's some sports where weight is embedded into it, football, fighting, wrestling. But I still think there's a lot that can be done even in those sports to go about it in a different way, and to understand that, how you eat is not a direct reflection of your weight, and your weight is not a direct reflection of your performance. And just uncoupling those things is so important. And viewing, as you mentioned, that food is your fuel to become stronger, faster, more powerful, to train more. So it takes a lot for people who've had similar experiences like yours, whether it was years ago or present day, because it is still happening. And then what is happening in present day, though, is I think that in the athletic realm, I would hope, sometimes I live in my bubble, but I would hope that things are getting better of food as fuel. Most coaches say things like that now. Food is fuel. Did you eat before practice? Make sure you get your protein shake. I mean, I've worked at 3 different NCAA universities as a sports dietitian. We provide them with the food before they step off the court. We've got these fueling stations. We've got protein shakes everywhere. It's the culture and environment is changing. However, I think the athlete culture, food as fuel, is still conflicting with just regular culture of fear, image, body pressures,
training to an aesthetic versus training to a performance. And there's a huge issue there, right?
There is. Yeah.
There's a problem there, no doubt. And honestly, for me, the process has been because in addition to being raised in a nutrition culture that wasn't in line with modern knowledge.
Yeah.
Also being a picky eater. I went to boarding school as a kid and the food wasn't great. And so I migrated to the salad bar and the cereal station and bagels. And again, I didn't like a wide variety of foods. So that, coupled with the fact that it was ingrained in me that less is more.
Yeah.
I've really come to a place with nutrition that for me, I have an MBA. Math is my comfort zone. I've had to turn it into math.
Yeah.
So my success or my journey forward with nutrition has been about math. I don't have any banned foods. Like I said, you hand me a pint of Ben & Jerry's, I'm going to eat it with a spoon and not think twice about it. But I can also go a day and a half without eating a whole lot because I'm not triggered much by hunger. So I've turned it into a mathematical equation. And with my nutrition support, I'm given grams of carbohydrate, protein, and fat based on my training, where I am in my training program. And I try to target those every day. So I keep a log. Again, it's an extra step. It's a lot of work, but I know at the end of the day, I have to hit those numbers. And so if I'm not like a third to a half of way there by 2:00 in the afternoon, I know I need to have some extra snacks so that I'm not sitting there being like, okay, I got 2,500 calories to go and it's 7 p.m. What are we going to do?
Yeah, that's not a good feeling.
Nutrition trackers make it really, for me, I just turned it into a logical mathematical equation. And if you want to perform, these are the numbers you have to hit, and simplify it. I was simplifying it by saying a bowl of cereal is the easiest thing for me to make for dinner.
Yeah.
But now I know, okay, I can have the bowl of cereal, but if I don't hit my numbers by the end of that meal, I've got to have something else. Yeah.
Right. So as you're monitoring your numbers, it's like, I can have the cereal, but I need to have a double bowl and add nuts to it and choose the whole milk and whatever it might be.
And sprinkle a little protein powder in there. And it's not always great foods. It's not perfect. I'm not always eating a nice lean chicken breast with, rice and a bunch of steamed broccoli. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, it's the real world, and we all have busy lives, and I've got 1,000 hours of training to get done, and 3 dogs and a husband, and I'm coaching and doing commentary and all of these things.
Yeah.
It's not always pretty, but math is pure, and it helps my mindset, and it helps me know if you hit these numbers, you get a gold star in the day, on to the next, and that's going to help you perform better. Yeah.
And really the reward for you too, aside from the hypothetical gold star, is that it's working. It feels good, right? Like, you're able to keep performing. And I think so I like this conversation because this was an old episode that I had a solo episode all around to track or not to track your diet or not track your diet. And there's no right answer. It's all about what works for you, right? Yeah. So there are a lot of people who are triggered by numbers, and often triggered because of that inherent mindset that less is better, or because of, situations maybe like yours in the past, being weighed and triggered and, things like that, where if seeing numbers always makes you err on the smaller side or the lighter side, maybe we need to not track, or if we're hyperfixating. But if making it a mathematical equation like you is motivating, and this is helping me achieve the goals I want, then that's wonderful. Yeah. So it's really, and I think regardless though, I will say, even if you're the person who numbers are triggering, I think when it comes to sports performance, there's sometimes when you're going to have to use it. Again, like maybe like you have to hit your carb goal when you're doing a 2-hour race or whatever it might be. Like you have to be aware of grams of carbohydrate.
You're not, for me, it was a really hard conversation with a wonderful doctor. I went through a year of injury after injury after injury after injury. And finally she sat me down and we did a bunch of tests, and we looked at a bunch of stuff, and she was like, your body is eating itself.
Yeah.
And basically it wasn't that I was not eating the pint of Ben and Jerry's. It was that I was eating the pint of Ben and Jerry's and considering it an okay meal. I wasn't getting the protein. I wasn't getting the balance of food. And she sat me down and she was like, you're wasting your time if you're not going to take this seriously.
Yeah.
And for someone whose performance mindset is, I want to be successful at, like, I'm going to turn every dial and twist every screw and do absolutely everything I can to squeeze every ounce of performance out of myself. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna get over the numbers thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna get. Nobody likes to step on a scale and see a bigger number, right? Like, that's just society. But to me, if I'm gonna be injured and sitting on the couch and can't perform, I can't tell you the last time I got on a scale, and it actually bugs the crap out of me that we walk into doctor's offices and the first thing they have you do is get on a scale. I'm like, do I look like I have a weight problem to you in either direction? Then what does that number matter to you? Stop doing it, because it reinforces this pattern that just doesn't matter. What matters for me in terms of nutrition and fueling is my performance. And for me, that's what I have to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Man, I agree with you so much. And this has just been such a fun, enlightening conversation. I hope our listeners enjoyed it. Just hearing about your journey and the things that you do now to focus on your nutrition with still that relaxed mindset, like you said, of just like, I'm good with cereal and wine, but this is what I have to do to feel good in my races, which is what I'm so passionate about and what I'm choosing to do every day, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would be a waste of my time and all of that training and all of that effort to not do it. And that's true. It's not just the nutrition. It's the strength training. Yeah. It's the last session of the day and I'm tired. Get into the gym and do the work because it matters.
Yeah.
I just want to get into bed. I don't want to do my 15-minute mobility program. Well, do you want to be injured?
Yeah.
No. So you evaluate the trade-offs. And I think I have that perspective now, having learned the lessons really the hard way for 2 careers now as an athlete, that all of those things. And I think that's what's kept me going as an athlete is that, yes, there's training and there's doing the work in your training sessions, regardless of your sport, but there's a million other ways to get better, whether it's sports psychology, whether it's your prehab and rehab, whether it's your strength training, whether it's your nutrition, whether it's your sleep habits, whether it's your cold plunging and sauna training and all of these things, sort of whatever your sport is, those little things at the teeny tiny top of the pyramid that can help you get better. That pyramid is actually flipped on its belly, and that training is only part of it. There's so many other things that can make you good and that you can get better at that have nothing to do with your primary sport training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, that would be a perfect place to end this podcast, but I'm not going to let it because it got me thinking just like one more question about how you operate. Because I think that whether athletes are at your level or just really like, I think about college athletes who are training a lot and just really busy schedules, managing school too, like how, like sometimes eating as much as you need to, and yes, it's the extra work and you're saying you've got to do it, but also like, how can you make it easier? Like, do you find that like you've got your go-to smoothie? Do you meal prep at all? Do you rely on your husband a lot to help you out with the cooking? Like, what are some things that just on the day-to-day operations make it easier to consume that amount of food that's needed? Because that like logistically becomes a problem for people.
I mean, thank goodness my husband is a foodie. Like,
okay.
Yeah, he is a foodie. In fact, when we were first married, he was like, what can I make you for dinner? And I was like, I'll just have a bowl of cereal, right? Like, again, like me and the cereal, but I'll just have a bowl of cereal. And he kind of looked at me and I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And shortly after we were married, he ordered a book from Amazon. This is when Amazon just did books. Remember that? No, you're too young.
Right. No, I do know. That's how they started. Yeah. Books
but
only.
When Amazon just did, so he got a book from Amazon and literally, we've been married like 10 minutes and this book arrives. And I was like, what'd you get? He's like, I just got a book. I was like, what book? He was being super squirrely about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, did I marry it like a creep? I'm like, open the damn book. And so he opens the package and it literally was like, it was called Going Solo in the Kitchen, Interesting Meals for One. And I was like, oh, he really does want to cook for me.
Oh,
so I am very lucky that my husband does love to cook. But he's busy as well. He has a really big job but he pretty much covers the dinners, but there's so much more that goes into it than that. And what I've really learned is that I have some literally like calorie bomb snacks that I just stock up on, shop at Costco, and we have a closet full of Ensure Complete, right? It's not pretty, but I can chug a little
gets the job done
8-ounce jar and it's 350 calories with a lot of protein. I can eat a Bobo bar that has 300 calories and a ton of carbs. And my mindset has always been, well, it hasn't always been. It's taken a while for me to get there. I would rather hit the calorie number at the end of the day and have it be slightly imperfect in terms of its content than skip on things because I'm like, oh, that's not the right snack.
Yeah.
I need the right snack. No, I need the food. So whatever it is, even if it's just convenient, I'm going to chuck it down the hatch because I'm better off with it than I am without it. So I do have some calorie bomb type snacks. And luckily with my schedule, and maybe for college athletes, it's helpful too. The schedule is pretty regular, right? It's busy and it's jam packed. But if you can find your routine with eating, that helps too. So honestly, the days I get really messed up are days I'm doing commentary for Ironman and I'm talking for 10 hours of the day.
Yeah, a different schedule.
And our studio is wonderful. They have all sorts of food and snacks and what can I get you? But I'm talking so much, it's really hard to get the food in. So days where I'm off of my routine, big travel days, really, really hard. So, and planning around nutrition, again, not my strength, but I'm getting better at it. If I know I'm going to be on a long flight and you're subject to airplane food, pack your calorie bomb snacks or stock up at the airport. Do what you have to do to just get the food and the hydration in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Being imperfect is better than not doing it at all. And that's the mindset I've tried to adopt, is just eating something is better than not eating anything.
I agree completely. Absolutely. Being fueled is better than being underfueled, especially, as an athlete and in these situations that you're in. So, all right. I have a few fun questions to end the episode. And normally the first one normally the first one, I have no clue what the answer is going to be, but I have an inkling on this one. So here's my fun questions. If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never be sick of it, what would it be?
Wine.
Okay.
I do love me a cheeky glass of red wine. I hate to say it, but I really, I don't like more than one, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I love, there's something about a glass of red wine that it's the ritual of it. Maybe it's the circumstances when I do drink wine that I enjoy.
Yeah.
But I just love a cheeky little glass of red wine, but not more than one because otherwise I won't get up in the morning.
Right. Well, and then it's not as enjoyable, right? But that one glass. Well, I was like, it's either cereal or red wine since that's what you had said before. So
I love myself just a little cheeky glass of red wine.
I love that. Favorite. Great. Okay. What is your favorite sport to participate in?
I love to run, which is going to be surprising for anybody that knows me because I'm loosely known as the sport of triathlon's worst runner. Like everyone's like, she's a great swimmer. She's really strong on the bike. Oh, look at her run. But I love the freedom of running. I think what I love about it is that you can do it anywhere. Yeah. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of equipment, just a pair of shoes. You can run in a densely populated city. You can run anywhere. You can run for 20 minutes and get a good workout, or you can run for 2 hours. And I just love the flexibility of running. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. How about as a spectator? What's your favorite sport to watch and cheer on?
It's cliche. I do. My husband loves to watch golf. I love to nap to golf. It's very soothing to nap to because the commentators whisper. And so it's really easy to fall asleep until a fan yells, "Get low!" I actually do love.
And then you're like, okay, I'll just go to bed now.
I know. I'm like, that totally wrecked it for me. Being a commentator for Ironman, I love watching Ironman. Yeah. Like I love watching triathlon racing. I think what has kept me in the sport is I just love the sport. Yeah. I think the opportunity to commentate has made me a better athlete because what hasn't happened to me personally, I've seen happen to other athletes in my role as a commentator. Yeah. And so I can draw on that. And I love the lifestyle and the personalities that come to triathlon. And I really am blessed to have my job as a commentator for Ironman. I love to watch it and talk about it.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Last question. If there's a female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to for being inspiring, being a role model, anybody for any reason, who would that be?
I think ironic that we're at New Year's Eve at 2024, but it's been a big year, especially with the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Coming from my swimming roots, I have to give a shout out to Katie Ledecky, whose, I think, dominance across 4 different Olympiads. That's not easy. I know she
Mm.
makes it look easy, but that is not easy. And to have that kind of excellence for that duration of time in a sport that literally is that mind-numbing. I mean, that girl is staring at a black line on the bottom of a pool.
Yeah, that's why I can't swim.
So many hours a day and continues to find joy and love in it. I've never met Katie.
Yeah.
I've read her book.
Yeah.
I know a bit about her story, but I think she's got a good head on her shoulders. I think she's a great role model for young athletes. She seems to be really, really well balanced. She seems kind and appreciative of the opportunity she's been given. So I'm going to say, shout out to Katie Ledecky.
Yeah, amazing. Well, to Katie and Dede, thank you so much for this conversation and just, all you're doing to not only just, pursue your passion, your love, but it's an inspiration for so many others, athletes of all ages. And that's so cool that, what kind of that decision you made in your mid-30s, if I'm going to go after this and to see where you are now. So we're so grateful for this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, I would truly appreciate if you could share this episode with a friend, give us a 5-star rating, or even leave a comment and a review. It really helps boost engagement and searchability and get episodes like this into the ears of people who will benefit from improving their nutrition and getting help. If you yourself are looking for more resources and help, you can head to riseupnutritionrun.com to learn about all my services and offerings. You can also find more resources at femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com, where we have all the resources surrounding this podcast. Both of those links are included in the show notes. There, you will also find ways to support this podcast. You can support the podcast with a financial contribution, link in the show notes and on the websites. And you can find ways to get in touch with me. If you are looking for help with your personal nutrition, you can head to my website and get in contact with me, and we can talk about applying for nutrition coaching help. Perhaps you are looking to be a guest on the podcast. You can head to femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com and submit a form to be a guest on this show or recommend somebody else. I also have discount codes and links to different products and companies and resources and free downloadable handouts within the websites that are always evolving and being updated. So please check them out. Many of these companies and products I do occasionally talk about on the show, but they're listed on the websites as their forever home that you can easily access when you're looking for help. Thank you so much for being a fan. Please reach out if you need help, and I'll see you in the next episode.